Go through today a way that I have set up a particular job. We all do things differently, and this one I didn't start. I inherited, although I had a lot to do with the original setup. But somebody else made up a lot of the drawing, and since his retirement, I've taken it over as a volunteer to look after a garden. And the garden's Birmingham Botanical Gardens, and it's around 5,000 square metres, and that's about 12.6 acres. And what we've done is we've drawn the whole estate up to track the trees and also to look at the buildings and the contents or the areas within those buildings. And I thought I'd just show you how we've done it, because we've done it in a particular way. We want to allow various members of the staff to access the drawings, because they need to either print them off, gardeners, areas of beds, tree locations, work that needs to be done and needs to be printed off, so the gardeners can go out and know exactly where they're supposed to be going. So what we've got is an estate down here, and I'll take you to the wireframe, which is what we call the overall map of the garden. And as you can see, there are lots of areas where there are big holes in, and that's been done for a specific purpose. And I'll go into that in a second. But basically, you can see the whole garden set up there with all the paths and everything else all laid out, and our neighbouring areas where we've got the tennis courts down here. But basically, we've got a reasonably sized garden. If I go onto the contours, if I can just find them, you can see that the site is quite steep in areas, and we've added all these contours on just so people can see just how steep some areas are. I mean, this area down here is very steep, and the fall from there, whoops, no, I don't want to save it, and the fall from there down across the main lawns is also quite steep. For the rest of the garden, for the various buildings, we've basically made up separate drawings, and this is the ground floor of the main building. As you can see, it's quite a large area with a main restaurant and ballroom area here. We've got the two hot houses down here, small cafe, and an admin and shop area, and a small garden centre that's here, with service areas at the back. And as you can see, there are basically three different angles. Well, actually, there are four different angles on here. This one here, this area here, this area here is slightly different to that one, and also the cafe area is also at a slightly different angle. So each one has got its own little drop down area, so I can go straight to it without having to reset it up. But you all know how to do that, and to use that to reset up the drawing and put it into the right plane. And if you want to go back, it's obviously top plan, and that puts it back again. Notice how it goes from black to blue, so you know exactly when you're moving things around. And we've also done, basically, we've done the first floor area, and also we've done a roof plan, which is surprisingly very difficult to try and plot. And also for the other buildings, we've got nursery areas, and I'll just take you down to the bottom there. And this is a nursery workshop, and also we've got other buildings down here. We've got the small cottage, which I was actually drawing yesterday, and there's a small house, and let's just quickly go to that one. And you can see there, not finished yet because a lot of the internal doors have never been added, but we put the roof plan onto that now, so we can at least show it onto the map as rather than a blocked out area, and it looks better. For the rest of the areas, we've got various things like the canopies. Each of the trees is geolocated, and each one of these trees we can generate from the actual master live tree a canopy area. Now this is important when you're looking at shading for other plants, and the gardeners quite like it. We've also done a wheelchair access where we've got an overlay where we can put in areas where either it's a little dicey, or you can actually go quite easily around the garden. You can see most of the paths around the garden are actually wheelchair friendly. We've also got another building, which is the educational building, which is the one over the far side, and again the roof of that has now just been plotted, so we can put that onto the overall map. But as you look at the thing down here, there's no little grey line separating the sheets away from the actual working drawings, and that's because we don't allow everybody to see this actual file. What we've done is we've actually created a series of drawings on a related file, and if you look down here, there's the master printing sheet that we've got. Now the master printing sheet is actually a link onto that file. Now if you look at organisation, you can see that the reference is there. It is. There's the file that we've just been looking at, and it's all linked in. So now we can create all our drawings for people just to print off as they wish in a separate file away from the master file, so people can't alter it or do things with it. And we're finding this to be quite successful. Each of the drawings has obviously got its own box for title box, and we've got about 19, 20 different drawings set up. We've got the atlas, which is a series of drawings for each of the different areas, and if you combine these into one PDF file, people as they walk through the garden, they can flick through as they go through on their iPads or whatever, and you can see the little key there changing the location exactly where it is. And of course each one's got a scale bar down the bottom just to help them out. And also we've got quite large databases on here. If you look down here, we've got the start of a new drawing where we're going to start putting on all the different benches with the names or the dedications, because a lot of the benches have got dedications on. So we've actually been through and started a dedication. Now those at the moment have been done by somebody who doesn't understand databases. So he's written them on and I imported them in, and eventually we will put those on as a database for each of the different bench symbols. Then we've also got the different beds, the site layout and bed location, the nursery buildings we've got out, the hothouse, and various other one. This one is the site layout, but it's an A0 rather than an A3, because all the drawings we've got here are A3 because they can be printed off quite easily. But this one's an A0 and we'll have to send that off for printing, but that's the one they're going to put into the potter's shed, so they can have a massive big file on the wall so they can see exactly where things are. Just switching back quickly to the master working or the detail area. The building is actually geolocated, so everything is all down to the grid, and we've actually put the OS grid on as well, so that we can use that as a location system for people in the garden. It's just big enough to say, well, you know, you have to go down this path and that path, and so what we've done is we put a grid on, and so people can relate exactly where they're talking about when they're trying to direct people into the garden. If you look down here, we've got tree live and tree dead. Now the tree live, each of the trees on there is a measured geolocated tree, and if you look at that, then it tells you on the drawing we've got the symbol has got live text onto the database. Now if I bring in the object info palette and I'll just go onto the data, you can see that it's actually on a record, and that's the one that it's linking to, and there's all the information for that particular tree. I'll do it down, and each one there's a proper taxon, and there's all the information that we've got on it, and that's now being updated as we speak to give more and more information. But each one of those is a geolocated tree. And if we have a tree die on us, we don't just remove it, we actually move it down to a dead tree layer where either the tree has died for any particular reason, or we've had to take it out, or the gardeners have taken it out to make more room. and this is now providing information for us for trees that are either sick, and we can see disease patterns setting up across the garden, or we can see, oh yes, there was a tree on this particular site, that's why there's a stump there, and we know exactly what it was. So we're trying to work on the dead tree layer a little bit more to give us better information. Wheelchair, I've done the boundary. There are different boundaries around the garden, and we know exactly where they all are, and we've taken these just to get the acreage of the site, and the acreage is about 12.6 acres. Drainage is interesting in that we are now seeing that there are a lot of hidden drains all over the garden, and we're slowly but surely trying to plot all the drains on the site and trace them through. A lot of them come from way back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, and we don't know whether they're live or not. So we're gradually going through and plotting them. Don't forget, this is a volunteer-based drawing, and so we only have so much time to do it. Contours I've got onto. Statutory, we're starting to put statutory information on, and that will be a bigger drawing. At the moment there's nothing there, and they are, at the moment we're putting a lot of stuff onto the wireframe because it's easier to draw, but they've all been classed out, and so eventually we will plot these out onto a separate statutory drawing. What else can I show you? Each of the beds have also been named so we can locate them properly, and this is all now being done, and it's on a separate drawing, as you can see here. Now what we did, we put on each of the beds, and because the beds are so located to the pathways, it looks like they are actually pathway drawing, but they're not, because each one of these is actually the outline of a bed, and we did that specifically so that we can get areas of each bed for ordering compost and everything else that they need to put on. And each of the beds, whether it's an internal bed within the glass houses, as you can see there, or whether it's external, they're all named up, and we can tell them exactly how much there is on each bed. I don't want to save. Right, what else can I show you? We've got an archive layer. Now the archive layer is a layer that we're starting to put stuff that we've drawn, and we really don't want to show it anywhere. It's either gone or the bed has been removed, and you can see we've only got one item in there at the moment. So we never throw anything away, we just put it onto an archive layer. We don't know whether it'll become live again in the future. So that's it really. Quite an interesting little job. All the different buildings are all separate, so the idea is that eventually they will go onto our own separate drawings, and they'll be linked into the master print file so that other staff can actually work on as they become trained up. But the main building is the big one, and that's got a lot of work to be done on it, where we will do fire escape stuff, areas for the restaurants, door numbers will all be put on, they haven't been done yet, and other fire fighting information that needs to be put on will eventually be put onto here and then shifted down to a separate layer or design layer as and when. So we've got two drawings. We've got the master working drawing and we've got the master print file, and this is the one that the staff are allowed to see, and rather than them come to us requesting the drawings, we've given certain people access to them so they can just print them off on their own. These are never sent outside the garden, they're all kept internal. And as people request new drawings, we put them on. As you know, it's quite easy to do. Once you've got the actual files linked in, then all we do is make up the new viewport, put it on, add a new drawing title, and then they can go out and print it. So that's it. Hope that's of interest to you. Ta-da.